Hey folks, it's Editing Series here to let you know the audio quality is a little bit worse on this one. Our microphone rebelled against us, and we did not check it as carefully as we should have during recording, so our culpa. We'll do better next time, but in the meantime, enjoy Rebel Moon. Hey folks, welcome to Friendly Orbit, the podcast that draws us together no matter how far we fly. I'm Ceres, ready to do another review.
And here, testing my friendship with Ceres once again, it's Theia.
So what are we watching?
So, I was conflicted about what to watch. Last time when I watched The Last Airbender, my backup movie was Madame Web. But then I thought there was really something special about watching a movie single-handedly concocted by a single person that had not been gone through studio mandated scenes, reshots, testing. It's just like it was awful, and then it was his fault. And I thought, if I keep dragging you through bad movies, this is how I want to do it. I don't want some studio corporate bad product. I don't want even like a Sharktopus.
You want a unique human bad vision.
I want to see someone truly believe in their creative vision,
right,
in such a misguided way.
Right.
So I will officially call this trilogy of episodes Head Up Your Ass with Theia. Welcome to episode 2, Rebel Moon, written, directed, produced by Zack Snyder.
I am very curious about Rebel Moon because I was intrigued by the trailers and I was told by everyone, don't watch it, it's bad.
Listen, written by Zack Snyder is a trademark of quality.
That's funny, actually, because you said it was going to be so long. I thought we were going to be doing the Snyder Cut.
Pretty good. Yeah, but I already watched that, and I don't care to rewatch it, because the worst part of that movie is pacing.
All right. Well then, let's dive in.
Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, Ceres. How do you like it?
It was not as bad as Avatar.
No, it's definitely more competently shot.
Yeah. It's better put together than Avatar, but I have to say, there's better ways I could spend my Friday evening.
Yeah, but it's 5 hours, right?
It tested my patience for sure. After part 1, I was like, do we really need to do part 2?
Yes. All right. Ceres.
Yes.
Seven Samurai is a 1954 Japanese epic samurai action film directed by Akira Kurosawa. Taking place in 1586 in the Sengoku period of Japanese history. It follows the story of a village of desperate farmers who seek to hire samurai to combat bandits who will return after the harvest to steal their crops. A core theme of Seven Samurai is violence. Seven Samurai explores the cycle of violence and how being removed from the cycle of violence is the only way to heal, and even practicing violence for noble goals such as defending ultimately leads to suffering and alienation from one's peers, and to the risk of perpetuating the same type of violence one rose up against. Zack Snyder thinks that it's cool when you see the guy with a gun.
Yeah, it's funny. This movie is basically that movie.
It is that movie.
It felt like worse.
Yeah, like Zack Snyder watched Seven Samurai, and I think he did not understand it.
It is funny. This movie has a theme of violence being bad that's brought up from time to time in the tell portions of the movie, but all the show portions of the movie are like killing bad guys is awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, let's go, maybe for our audience who doesn't know the plot of this movie, we can go bit by bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the overview of the story is what I said. But this is a sci-fi movie.
Yes. It's very, once it's pointed out to you, it's incredibly Star Wars-y as well, which makes sense because it was originally pitched as a Star Wars project.
Yeah.
So we live...
Which, to be clear, I think makes a lot... Like, Star Wars takes already a lot of inspiration from Japanese movies of this era. So I think that the promise of doing 7 samurai in the Star Wars universe in itself is good.
Well, that's something I think is in general true about the movie. I feel like the movie generally works in a space with concepts and ideas that are not that flawed, right? You have a rural harvest planet. You have an empire that wants the resources. You have 9 weeks until the empire comes back to collect the resources in which you can train and prepare yourself. You have a large ensemble cast of heroes who will end up defending this village that each have their own personal conflict with the empire and their own personal journey to learn. And well, I'm saying, right? That's the concept, or that's the premise of the promise of the movie, right? You have lessons you can learn about the nature of violence, the nature of belonging to a community, the nature of consumption and imperialism versus sustainability and like pastoralism, right? And then at the end of the movie, you have a large violent conflict in order to settle the difference, and you spark the rebellion that'll bring about a better and brighter day in the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
So like none of that really seems unworkable to me. I think you could make an entertaining movie about that. But guess what? They didn't.
Big singular. He didn't, right? This is Head Up Your Ass with Theia, and today we're...
Written by Zack Snyder, story by Zack Snyder, produced by Zack Snyder, directed by Zack
Snyder,
and directed by Zack Snyder. It's deep in the Snyderverse, you guys. It's deep. It is actually, it feels in a funny way like a mashup of every single movie he's ever done. Like, there's one character that just feels like a 300 character.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's tell them about the plot. Let's tell them what actually happens in this movie. Where do we start?
We start with a space vagina.
A portal opening.
The lust of the mother world.
It's so funny how they overlay those two. We start, as all movies in this series probably will start, with a long narration intro sequence.
Yes, and a spaceship flying through space where we are informed about this empire called the Mother World.
Yes. The Mother World very clearly seems like some Earth kind of timeline where, you know, like it's kind of like The Expanse or whatever. There's some Mother World that appears to be human-centric because, you know.
Much like the Empire in Star Wars.
Exactly.
Only humans work in it.
And has sort of, you know, conquered all the known systems or something like that. That's what we're led to believe, you know, is some sort of, and we're informed specifically, and this is something that drove me nuts, about 1,000 generation monarchy that controls the Empire and the Mother World, that has just recently come crashing down due to an assassination that killed the king, queen, and the heir to the throne.
1,000 years, 1,000 generations of good monarchy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Theia, would you believe me if I told you that the monarchy is a political system specifically designed to never fail in the case of the death of the monarch? There is, to this day, a claimant to the Bourbon throne of France. That's just not how the monarchy works. That you kill the king, the queen, and the heir, then it goes to the brother, then it goes to the cousin, then it goes to the whatever. There's always somebody who is most closely related to the king, and that person, depending on the rules of inheritance, always gets the crown.
Yeah, there's the king, there's the queen, and then there's their daughter, the princess. And that's the monarchy.
That's it. None of them have siblings. None of them have living parents. None of them have cousins or uncles or distant relatives.
I mean, listen, okay, there's two things to that. Monarchies only work as long as people are loyal to the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
So if a general manages to rally the royal guard to serve him instead of the royal family, as it often occurred in a certain empire, that this empire may or may not be inspired by, then having the title of monarch serves you.
That's not an assassination.
What?
That's not an assassination. That is a coup.
Yes.
That's not how it's portrayed. It's portrayed as though they killed these people. There's no further claimants to the throne. Therefore, the regent, the general, has control of the realm, and everything is going according to his plan. It's never once even shown or hinted that there is somebody who actually deserves the throne, who maybe is disabled, imprisoned, a child, all the examples that exist throughout history that the regent is controlling, right? So it just frustrated me because of all the governmental systems that exist, the most death-proof one is actually a monarchy. Hence the famous sentence, "The king is dead, long live the king." Yeah. It's an instant transitional system in which death never eliminates the ruler unless literally the entire population dies.
There should be, at the very least, a faction loyal, like a monarchist faction, who's serving whatever, the uncle or the nephew or whatever.
Anyways, this is a fantasy monarchy in which killing the king, queen, and heir is enough. And so an evil regent, Belisarius, has taken control. Yes. That's one thing. I guess we can talk a little bit about the Empire and the vibe that it has. They all dress like Nazis. Yes. They all have extremely Roman names and are not even a little bit subtle about it.
They all look like British fascists from the 1930s. After having watched Peaky Blinders, even the hairstyles.
Yeah, the hairstyles and the accents are So anyway, so this empire lands on this bucolic, pastoral, beautiful planet called Veld.
Where everybody has Norse or Irish.
Yeah, they all have Norse names, like Sigrid and Gunnar and...
Sindri.
Sindri, right, exactly. Like the dwarf from... or Hagen, from the Nibelungen saga. Oh, wow. Crazy. You wouldn't believe what Veld translates to. I was right.
You're right.
Veld translates to an open, uncultivated country or grassland in southern Africa. It's conventionally divided by altitude into High Veld, Middle Veld, and Low Veld. So I thought it was Dutch for field, and it turns out it's Dutch for field.
I was about to say, in Africa, colonial Africa.
Yes, in colonial. It says southern Africa, so yeah. Anyways, so... Yeah, Veld, the creatively and you really gotta know your shit to understand it, named place, harbors exactly this little village, which never, as far as I remember, is never given a name. But it's on this village that we meet our protagonist of the series.
Shit, you're right.
Yeah, no, it's the name. I don't think we ever get the name of this place. It's just the village or here. Alternatively, your land. We meet Cora, our protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Practicing pastoral agriculture by moving a plow through a field carried by a horse.
Yes.
A plated horse.
Not a horse. I can't remember.
Okay, but it's
it's a horse with a horn plate on its forehead.
Yeah.
And we get introduced to her, and we see her as a hardworking person who's maybe a little standoffish, not fully integrated into the community, but she is friends with Gunnar, who is a character who very early on we learn is sort of a mercurial, money-oriented merchant type.
You want to go with Gunnar?
I think Gunnar is a good way to pronounce the name. Yeah. I don't know. I guess we don't have the time to really go through this all beat by beat. But the Empire shows up, says, "We want all your shit," and it kills the leader of the village, who's trying to convince them, "Oh, we don't have any resources," when they clearly do.
In a very stupid way. Everybody goes about it the worst way. Cora's the only one who seems to have to tell them what to do, and they seem to agree to the plan, which is if they ask,
give them stuff, but don't volunteer stuff.
But don't volunteer
and don't tell them that this is a fertile place where you can grow lots of food.
Exactly. And they arrive, they ask to buy only the surplus at triple market price.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a good deal, but then the leader,
Sindri,
instead decides to lie.
Yeah.
And
in a kind of an obvious way.
Yeah, in a weird way, where it's
saying "Oh, the land doesn't. The land is so infertile. We can barely feed ourselves." And the bad guy, who's called Noble.
Noble.
I'm not sure you can figure out the symbolism behind that, but he's called Noble. he's like, yeah, but your people seem well fed. They seem happy. They seem healthy.
Your
so
fields are wide and big.
What's this about barely being able to feed yourselves?
And then Gunnar immediately.
Gunnar
Immediately.
Gunnar says, "Oh well, we maybe have a little bit of surplus.
We actually have so much surplus that we cannot stock anymore.
Yeah,
like, we are throwing it away."
So Sindri gets his head caved in with the bone stick. The bone stick is
will return.
will return. The bone stick is a bone-shaped cane that
Noble uses.
Yeah, that Noble likes to use as a cudgel, as kind of a cane / weapon. And it's made clear that in 9 weeks they're going to come back and they're going to take everything the village has, and the village is going to basically starve to death if they allow that to happen.
So Korra.
Well, also one thing I want to say here, just talking about the Empire, right? We see the big ship enter from orbit here. There's a great shot that I thought was pretty cool, right? We get to see this giant orbital ship. I think this is one of the parts where I was on board. I was like, this is interesting, right? We have this moon. This moon has its own aesthetic. It's very rustic. It's very pastoral. Then we have the Empire. The Empire has its own aesthetic. It's very like technologically advanced and incredibly impressive in terms of scale. Yeah, industrial as well. And this was like the first time, and not the last time, that we thought to ourselves, Dune did this better, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's really just Dune. It's really the opening of Dune in a lot of ways. It's like a giant ship lands, the tech priests come out, the attendants come out, the big leader comes out. Yeah. And in terms of aesthetics, it's honestly not that amazing. That was like one of the first points that we sort of criticized, is just that like the tech priests and all of that just doesn't, and the ships, none of it is like as cool as Dune, which is not necessarily like, but like we've just seen Dune, so you know.
Yeah, it just came out. I think it's also like how like obviously inspired by real things it is, but without further elaboration.
Absolutely.
Like he went, okay, these are space Norse people.
Yeah.
What do they look like? They look like Norse people.
Yeah.
And these are space Nazis. What do they look like? They look like Nazis.
He did go the extra step of like layering them a little bit. So kind of the Norse people have like these like more modern like farmer get-ups, and there's like some Irish accents going around. So maybe they're like Irish farmers, and
it's definitely like an early 20th century vibe to everything.
And to everything on Veld and the Empire.
I would say also the Empire, like they wear these uniforms.
They wear the Nazi uniforms for sure.
The ships, the technology is kind of like Star Warsy, where it's all like buttons and levers. It's still all switches.
True. That is true. It's not a very digital place.
Even the hologram looked like steampunky.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right. And like galvanism was kind of a big like sub theme of the medical equipment. So.
And the planet of the Griffins is all like steampunk Victorian.
Oh my god, that was so awful. We have to get to that at some point.
Anyway, so the Empire.
Yep.
The Empire gives them this ultimatum.
Yep.
And leaves his platoon of soldiers on the ground with a robot.
Yeah.
Which this robot, oh my god, this robot is basically a former royal guard who, in light of the events of the entire royal line being exterminated, apparently.
Which, again, is impossible.
Yeah, has no one to serve, and as such is basically a slave.
Yeah.
Whoever commands him. And these soldiers, they immediately make it clear why these guys are the bad guys.
Yeah.
By
it's so uncomfortable. They're
a beautiful blonde young girl into the barn, and their commanding officer immediately reprimands them. And they're like, "You're not gonna play a finger on this young girl before I get a taste of her."
Yeah,
boys?
It's really awful and uncomfortable. The entire. This entire segment, and there's another segment that comes again. So Zack's.
I just say this, sorry, because the only reason I bring this up is because this attack is the first hint that something more might be going on in this village with this girl, because this girl gets saved first by Korra, but when Korra ultimately is about to fail, the robot.
Yeah.
This robot shows up.
Yeah, this girl is nice to the robot in a scene before this, and seems to even sort of, I don't know, heal or inspire the robot a little bit. We get a little
some kind of emotion.
Some sort of transformation in the robot, and the robots, which are said not to fight, does fight in this scene on her behalf to save her from the assaulters.
Shoots a single shot and then runs away.
Yeah, but it's very uncomfortable. Zack Snyder repeatedly in these movies uses sexual assault as the marker of evil. And it's not that sexual assault isn't evil. It's just that it's uncomfortable every time a villain shows up. We have to immediately make them rapey. It's very low-hanging fruit, and it's very uncomfortable for the audience. You're watching a PG-13 movie, and it's like, not only are we... I mean, like, literally, I don't know how to say this in any nicer terms. They're, like, basically saying, we're gonna... all in a row.
Yeah, we're gonna take turns.
We're gonna take turns raping this girl, and then the commander's gonna go first, and we're gonna go first, and we're just gonna keep doing it, and we're never gonna stop. And it's just like, whoa, what the fuck, man? Like, I thought I was like watching like this like Star Wars-y sci-fi, whatever. It gets really rapey really fast. It made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a classic trope, but it's a bad classic trope. It's very low-hanging fruit, and it's a very easy way to make your bad guys evil. I think that's one of the things that's to the detriment of this movie ultimately, or both these movies ultimately, is the evil is very unexamined. And I think there's a lot about empires where you can actually get into interesting things where empires often have very high opinions of themselves. Like, oh, we build the roads. Oh, we build the infrastructure. Oh, we do this. Oh, we do that. You know, there's all sorts of interesting nuances to get into. This empire just seems to be evil for evil's sake, you know? Yeah. Like, it's not like evil in the name of quote-unquote progress, and then who defines progress? And then we get into a whole interesting discussion about imperialism and technological advancements. It's like, no, these people are just like full-on evil.
And the moral of this movie is if there was an empire that was killing people for no reason and like letting their subjects be basically executed and sexually assaulted, that would be bad.
That would be bad. We should fight that, yeah.
We shouldn't stand for that.
Yeah. So yeah, we have this scene, and Cora.
All the soldiers get killed.
All the soldiers get killed, and
point
so this
of no return.
Exactly. This is the point of no return, kind of the inciting incident. And I was like, all right, when the Empire comes back in 9 weeks, we're all going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble. So we have to defend ourselves, right? So this inspires Cora and Gunnar to go off and collect. There's some rebels they know of, and otherwise just like collect heroes to come and to defend the town.
All right, let's get these out of the way. First thing, they go to a tavern to meet an informant. They don't meet an informant, but they get a guy with a ship.
Yeah.
San Holo.
We also have, again, a super rapey scene. This time...
I didn't want to.
We need to call it out.
I mean, okay, you have a rapey scene. Do you want to talk to it?
No, we just have a rapey scene. And at least Zack Snyder is not equal opportunity character rapist, because this time it's rapey towards Gunnar. But
gets grabbed by the crowd.
Yeah, but it's uncomfortable. I very much disliked, one of the major things I disliked about the openings of these movies was the double whammy of like rape scene number 1 into rape scene number 2.
That's how you know.
That's how you know they're bad. But yeah, I mean, just as an abbreviating thing, basically the next hour and a half of this movie is what could have been a 5-minute montage of collecting heroes. And we start doing what this movie does a lot.
20 minutes.
Yeah, sure. We start doing what this movie does a lot, which is we do one thing for character A, but since we have 6 other characters in the cast, then we do the exact same thing for character B and for character C. And by the time you get to character D, you usually want to die because you know exactly what's going to happen next in the plot. But yes, so we find that informant.
Yeah, it's the first guy. Well, we don't find the informant.
No, we don't. We find the guy with the ship.
A guy with a ship who seems surprisingly on board with just working for them for no price, only on the idea that they are trying to screw the mother world.
Yeah.
And he's got a ship.
And we naturally, immediately suspected that this guy was a traitor and was going to sell them out. And this is the big reveal of the movie. So, to quote one of Brandon Sanderson's characters in books, this movie is mentally direct in terms of its plot. What's going to happen next is usually obvious and is usually the simplest path from point A to point B.
Zack Snyder is a mentally direct person as a whole. That's the vibes I get from it.
Like, I shared this with you earlier, but I think it's relevant here. I once saw like a short just that Brandon Sanderson made, it's part of his writing class that he shares online on YouTube for free. And he says basically, one of the ways that you do a plot is you have your starting point, you have the end point you would like to reach as an author, and you have an alternate end point that seems plausible. And what you do is you draw a line. Your plot is kind of your narrative is basically a line you're drawing between these points. And you make it bend towards the alternate ending, making it seem like it's going to be that. And then you shy away from it, you come closer, you shy away from it, you come closer, and then ultimately you circle back around to the original ending that you intended, and you do one last loop-de-loop just to surprise the reader, and then you come to the final conclusion, right? So basically, you set up a scenario, you set up two possible outcomes, you make it seem like it might be the bad outcome or the outcome that it's not going to be, then you swing back to the outcome it is going to be, and you give one last final twist just to make it a little surprising and interesting. It doesn't quite happen the way you thought it was going to happen, like Frodo does throw the ring in the pit, but not quite in the way that Frodo does complete his mission of throwing the ring into the pit and destroying Sauron, but he also fails, and it actually goes just a little bit differently than you might have expected. It keeps you on your toes to the very end, If that is how Brandon Sanderson would do a plot structure, then the plot structure of this movie is just the starting point, the end point, and a straight line between the two. That's what I mean by direct.
Yeah, the line just squiggles it in for a moment, and then it still hits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There is no alternate ending B that you believe might actually happen. So one by one, we collect these fighters. Some of them basically seemingly at random. Like the first one we pick up because San Holo,
the smuggler,
yeah, the guy with the ship, just says, I know a guy you might be interested in. And this is where we meet the most honorable slave trader.
I just figured out what you mean when you keep saying San Holo. I was like, is this actually his name? Because I don't remember the guy's name.
No.
But yes, this is our non-Han Solo character. And we find our first hero who is captured, a slave in bondage. His name is Tanak? Tarek, exactly. It's like a letter off from Tarzan is how I remember it, because that's basically how you can visualize this character. It takes until movie 2 for him to wear a shirt.
Yeah.
I just want to put that, he doesn't have shirtless.
That's accurate.
Like, shirtless scenes are not the exception. Shirted scenes are the exception.
Yeah. And what kind of deal do they get from getting Tarek? That this guy who we have basically
it's just the trader wanted basically another guy on his ship
what kind of deal is offered? Like, how do we get Tarek?
Oh, how do we get Tarek? Right. So how do we free Tarek from a slaver? Now, many of you might be thinking something along the lines of kill the slaver or free Tarek and escape. Now, instead, we just make a deal with the slaver, because it turns out this man, even though he is a slaver, is very honorable and will keep his word.
And Tarek is also an honorable slave.
Yeah, and Tarek insists he can't leave bondage unless he repays his slave debt, which to me is insane, because he's a literal slave. Are you kidding me? And also...
Only a white man could get away with this.
And also, his entire planet was enslaved, so it seems like he's not even I could imagine... Maybe, exactly. Somebody would end up like an indebted servant, right? Because you took on so much debt that you basically became a slave or something like that. But that's not even the case. This guy just... All right, anyways.
What honorable deal does Korra agree to?
Right, so, what's his face? Tarzan.
Yeah.
Tarzan has to tame a hippogriff, and if he tames a hippogriff, or actually... It's not a hippogriff, it's a griffin, because it doesn't have horse legs. It has like a lion body more.
It's a really big hippogriff. It's the size of a horse.
Well, it's just a griffin, right?
Griffin. Sorry, it's a big griffin. Yeah. I tend to imagine griffins as smaller than that.
Sure.
So it's a griffin. It's the size of a horse.
It's a big griffin. And basically he has to tame it. He has to make it rideable for the slave master. If he does that, they all get to go free. If he doesn't, they all become slaves, which
Korra included.
Which seems like a pretty high risk, but Tarzan says, I can do this. And Korra says, I trust this guy. Let's do it.
Because Qui-Gon Jinn wins Anakin on a bet on Tatooine.
Yeah, it's funny. So in classic The Last Airbender terms, we set up this scene, do the scene, and pay off the scene in about 10 minutes. Also, the Griffin doesn't leave the planet with us, as I originally thought when I was watching this scene. It just hangs out here. So even though it's on the movie poster, and seems like it would be a really cool addition to the rest of the movies, it never shows up again. It never matters again.
It would make Tarzan also he's a beastmaster. He never tames a beast after this scene.
Exactly. So he tames the Griffin. The slave master very surprisingly, just keeps his word and goes, all right, you can go free. And the last we see of the planet is that the slave guy, Matt, tries to ride the Griffin, and the Griffin obviously kills him because the Griffin was only tamed for Tarzan and not for anybody else. So that's Tarzan's scene. We learned that it's just completely bonkers.
Cut.
Yeah.
Cut to an elevator. In an industrial planet.
Yeah.
We are in an elevator with
Nemesis.
Who's Nemesis?
Nemesis is, she basically immediately explains her motivation to us. This movie does a lot of, again, the last Airbender patented formula of
patented formula.
The patented formula of show poorly, and tell a little more just in case you didn't get it. So Nemesis is seen saving a child of a mother who would otherwise, have lost her child. She explains during the combat that she herself has lost a child, and then later we see a flashback showing her losing her child as she narrates over it and explains to us that she is a mother who has lost her child.
Yeah. Nemesis fights with something special.
Yes.
Lightsabers.
They're lightsabers.
They fight with lightsabers?
The one thing I do want to say, as much as the blasters in this movie and the lightsabers in this movie are totally ripped off from Star Wars in concept, they looked good.
Yeah. And
they were actually cooler, I felt, in some moments than a Star Wars lightsaber or a Star Wars blaster would have been. In the sense that they had a bit more physicality. The plasma that sort of came out of the guns would really splash over stuff, kind of like lava in a cool way.
It lends itself to the slow-mo style of Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
I think in Star Wars you rarely have slow-mo fighting scenes, so those lasers would just be like lines. Yeah. And conversely, if we saw all the splashes in fast move, it would just be a bunch of particles effects blowing up on the screen. So it lends itself. I like the sabers that they had the physicality to them, where one gets stuck into the metal, it falls and gets stuck.
Yeah.
While a lightsaber, I don't know if it can do that, or it would just
turn off, I guess, right? Wouldn't it? If as soon as you're not holding it anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember a scene where.
Or it would go like the Rick and Morty episode, where it's tunneling to the center of the earth.
Yeah. There is Darth Vader throws his lightsaber at the end of Return of the Jedi. Yeah, because Luke has the high ground, and Darth Vader has learned. The last one, so he throws the lightsaber.
I see.
At Luke and cuts off the thing in the structure force. But yeah.
So we're introduced to the bad guy of this scene. The woman who has kidnapped the child from the real mother is a giant spider lady, and we learn.
Yeah, you have an opinion of it. You have a very strong opinion.
We learn she's an alien, and all of a sudden it's like, what? There's aliens in this setting? And we have the orcs from Bright.
We have so many. This is not the first time.
This is not the first time, but it's an important time to mention it, because here she makes it clear that she's not a genetically modified human or something like that. She is a true alien of an independent civilization that independently developed sapiens and culture and so on from the mothership, from the motherland, and was then from the mother planet. What is it?
The mother world.
Mother world, right?
From the
I will never forget the lust of the mother world. Yeah, so from the mother world, and was then colonized by them. So it's all of a sudden sentient sapient aliens exist in this setting, which was very surprising to me, and I felt was jarring to me in the moment, because I'd assumed every person we'd seen up until this point was a genetically modified human if they didn't. But yeah, we have the orcs from Bright. We just have a
parasite brain that controls you.
Yeah. We kind of have the Star Wars aliens that have the braid on the back of the head and have kind of the wrinkly weird faces.
Yeah.
There's a Jedi one of them.
Yeah.
We have kind of people who look kind of like that without the braid. They just have the same similar bright pink wrinkly faces.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're and we have this spider lady, and this spider lady fights Nemesis, starting the fight with a spear charge that Nemesis doesn't even need to dodge, because the actress was not cued correctly on the scene, or the scene was changed in post or something. But it's really funny because the you just see it for a moment, but the spider lady charges forward with the spear, and the actress doesn't even need to move, because she's just the spear is not pointing to the right place from the start of the fight.
Why does Nemesis decide to join them?
I have no idea.
I think it's because Bruno helps saving the child.
Oh, cool.
I think that's why.
I think it's because she hates the Empire, basically.
Probably.
Motivations for this crew run pretty thin. Like, Korra has a pretty clear motivation. Gunnar has a pretty clear motivation. The rest of them are just kind of happy to hang out and do anything that screws the Empire.
Yeah.
They all have also very simplistic backstories. Tarzan's...
Don't get ahead.
Let's talk about these two, right? Tarzan's planet was subjugated.
Tarzan is a prince.
Yeah, Tarzan. Well, don't now. Who's spoiling?
Oh, okay. So I thought you wanted to do the whole thing.
No. I was just gonna say, like, Tarzan's planet, everybody gets enslaved on it. Nemesis, her children, and her whole village were killed. It's never really explained why the Empire does these things. It just does these things.
Nemesis. Like the last thing on Nemesis is that when we leave, she has a little monologue, because monologues are like the bread and butter of the movie, where she talks about how dark revenge is, and like how she's a monster consumed by revenge, and revenge is bad. And hold that thought.
Yeah, hold that thought for later.
All right.
I do want to mention here, I do want to say, so this scene, the fight scene, is not like the worst in the world, but I do want to mention the fight scenes we've seen up until this point in the movie are often weirdly edited and disjointed and not very good. And what we've started to notice at this point is there's this blurry fisheye lens that is just that all the scenes are shot with, that results into like an extremely small depth of field that's actually sharp, and the rest is very blurry. And so there are lots of scenes in this movie, in both of these movies, where you have a character in focus. Like the shot is about the character, and only part of the character is even in focus. Already the shoulders of the character are not in focus, or the chest of the character that you can see, below their face is already out of focus.
There are some crazy shots, like when elements on the head of the character who is in focus, like in close up.
Yeah.
Like the hat, the military hat of the Nazi officer, like his face is in focus, but the back of the hat is already blurry.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And when combined with movement, it really started to make me nauseous by the end of movie 2.
And the CGI sometimes is not correct.
Sometimes it is blurry, and sometimes it's not correctly blurred. So there's these strange elements where the background is sharper than the middle ground, which is then less sharp than the foreground, which is in focus, which is then, again, like the stuff that's really, really close to the lens is out of focus again. I hated that fisheye effect. It was really disorienting. Really distracting and disorienting on the entire movie, which is a visual spectacle first and foremost. This movie was uncomfortable to watch, like just on the baseline, because that was weird.
No, absolutely.
But anyway, so after Nemesis, who do we go next?
I think this is when we go to the very subtly named Pollux.
Yes, we go to the very subtly named planet of Pollux, which has the Colosseum of Castor. Now, hey, you Rome fans, are we putting anything together? Where we get to see a General Titus. Wow, it's all so subtle, these Rome references. Is anyone going to even get them?
I don't know, but they're not going to get better over time. But yeah, in this Colosseum, which is already a ruin.
Yeah.
Even though allegedly
we're still using it.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like a ruin, because I guess the real Colosseum looks like a ruin.
Yes.
We find General Titus. General Titus, is he in peak performance?
No, he is not. He is passed out on the side of the road with a big, dreaded, bushy beard, and he is a full-on alcoholic.
All right.
But not for long.
Not for long, because he gets washed up. Korra.
He gets hosed down. It's not even as respectful as a bath.
It's Pulp Fiction style hosing down. And Korra offers him at first a chance to redeem himself. But he doesn't want redemption.
No, because he can't. He can't ever be redeemed. So what does he get instead?
He's going to get revenge.
And this is enough to motivate him.
That's enough to motivate him. And especially...
What did Nemesis say last scene?
And it's so interesting because over the movie, it will somehow be shown or like implied that Nemesis is a creature only motivated by revenge, beyond, like, she is driven by darkness.
Kind of like the ending of the movie Fury, where it's like these people are too far gone, they've seen too much killing, too much death, they just can't go back and be part of normal society, right? Yeah. We sort of get this picture painted with Nemesis. She's a creature of revenge. She's dedicated herself to, getting that revenge, but that means she can't really,
Yeah. But for what we are shown, Nemesis does nothing but like bond healthily with a child, in what is probably like the best like relationship established by the movie. And like only fights to protect and dies.
And is the only one who regrets the violence that she commits.
Yeah.
So it's really ironic that she's the one who's considered too far gone.
Yeah. And Titus is shown to be motivated, basically nothing but revenge. The point that he says that he is ready, he's going to fight till death.
Yes.
He is not going to surrender. He is here to get revenge.
And he has zero regrets about the hundreds of people he is about to kill in movie 2.
He has had zero regrets about the hundreds of people he has killed in the past. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Anyway, he gets hosed down. He's offered revenge. He is like, hell yeah.
He stands up to dramatic music.
He sheds a single tear, I think, when he realizes he has the opportunity to get revenge.
And he ceases to be an alcoholic.
He heals.
In perfect Hollywood fashion, revenge. He never touches a drop again.
He sheds a single tear in honor of, like, for the ability he will have to seize more lives. A single tear of joy.
And we leave. That was it. We set up the whole planet. We set up the Colosseum. We talked about this, and it's already done already.
Okay. Next is Server Planet.
Yes, this was a really weird planet. This planet...
I would love to spend more time on this planet.
So I have to... This is one thing. The CGI was quite bad in certain parts. There were a lot of areas on Veld where I felt like we were just literally riding into a Skyrim screenshot. It really looks like Skyrim. This planet similarly felt like a Halo cutscene. Like, it's basically a planet covered in these square monoliths that faintly glow at the top. They look kind of like server towers, but I don't think they're supposed to be.
Some of them have like glowing glyphs, giant glyphs.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to like check out what's inside of them.
Yeah.
But
I do want to note that this planet is in perpetual shadow, as far as we can tell. Yes. Regardless of the temperatures that would imply, Tarzan is not putting on a shirt.
No.
We're glad you asked, but he's not putting on a shirt.
I mean, Korra is also like only wearing like
a tank top.
Like a tank top.
And this is the planet that's hosting the rebels, the non-Star Wars rebels, the Rebel Moon rebels.
Yeah. The Blood Axes.
Yes, the Blood Axes.
Led by Deborah Blood Axe.
And her brother, who's Cyborg, who actually I felt like did a good job in this movie.
Yeah, it was very hard to recognize, and like for the short time he was there, he went down like a champ.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can't have two black people.
Well, yeah,
one at a time.
He just had to sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
I don't know, not that much happens here. They make it seem like this scene has stakes, but they basically go to the rebels and they say, hey, we want help. And the rebels...
contingent of rebels decide that it's worth fighting.
Yeah, and a small contingent of the most radicalized, militant political individuals in the system decide, hey, maybe we do want to fight for our cause.
Yeah, the others are like,
I don't know.
Sure yet.
I don't know what the stakes ever were in this scene or why it was played up in that way, but basically they convinced some of the rebels to fight against the Empire because why wouldn't they? We leave Server Planet, but not before we see that actually the Empire and the King's Gaze, which is the giant flagship of the Admiral Noble and the bad guys, is here and is right on their tails, and it seems like they've been getting tips from somebody as to where they might be moving. Yeah. And although they're not caught on this planet, we move on to the next stop, our next planet.
They blow up this planet.
Oh, yeah. This planet is destroyed with like nukes. A nuke cannon kind of situation.
Yeah, I was kind of sad about it, more because this planet looked like an interesting place that I wanted to learn more about.
Yeah, you just like that it was run by squid people.
No, I mean, the squid person came later. I was just like, I thought initially this was like an AI planet.
Mm-hmm.
I thought these are all giant servers. This looks like a giant server.
Yeah.
This might be an AI planet. And like it's perpetual darkness because of like the pollution of the factories or something. But no.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just wanted to learn more about those giant towers, honestly.
So we go to an unnamed planet and an unnamed station. They receive a name in movie 2, but on the title card in movie 1 just says unregistered station.
It's basically like a spaceport where San Holo claims that he has to basically like complete one like purchase.
Yeah.
Like he has to sell some cargo to the final thing, and it's like, this is my last job. And then I can dedicate myself to the cause.
And we haven't mentioned them yet, but we've set up earlier in this movie these cool little like robots. They look a little bit like the droids from Star Wars that can roll around. But these robots, they fold themselves out of boxes and they capture people. They grab them, and so they wrap themselves around the people, and the people are sort of held open and defenseless by these bounty bots.
Yeah, it's basically like a cage that is also a grab.
And
pretty cool design.
And they have this little mechanism on the back where there's like this gun that you can put in the back, and you can either use it to kill a person and paralyze them forever because it like shoots a needle in between the vertebra of their spine, or if you turn it counterclockwise, then it unlocks the entire robot.
I mean, I don't know if it's worth going into so much detail, but yes, that is how they work.
That little detail, that flaw in design, will be relevant for the climax of this movie.
Yeah. So,
Betrayal,
shocking.
Yes.
I know. San Holo was counting on getting paid by turning all of these rebels in at once.
Which was kind of cute. That was kind of like it was a fun motivation for him to want to put together a team, is the idea that like, oh, I'm just going to round them all up in the end.
I mean, if they had foreshadowed it just a little less,
yeah.
Like to me it was already like, oh, there's no man in it. It's okay. The cause is enough for me. That doesn't seem like this character, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was enough, but then later, like, they drop more hints that he's like in collusion with some.
They show us the orcs from Bright over and over again, which are bounty hunters in this world.
All of them. I don't know. Maybe we don't know for sure. It seems like the ones we are shown are told to be bounty hunters. I hope that not the entire race is bounty hunters, but world building is not something this movie does.
Yeah, I mean, so we're betrayed. We're explained the motivation behind the betrayal, which was kind of a good line, I felt, which was like, never set foot on the wrong side of history. You know, you're just representing a side that doesn't even make it into the history books, that kind of thing.
And those lines were pretty good. I think that it was just a little, like, it required a little bit of mental gymnastic, because San Holo says that basically, like, his experience is that the Mother World destroyed his, like, planet, killed everyone, shattered corpses flying in low orbit.
Yeah.
It's like, this seems like the thing that would radicalize you
against the Empire and not in its favor. Yeah.
Exactly. But like, okay, he's an opportunist, fine, but like, we haven't talked about Korra yet, and maybe it's also a good time to talk about Korra's past.
Yeah.
But essentially, Korra used to be the most stormtrooper that ever stormtrooped. And so I thought that like, he's like, I can't take my revenge against the Empire, but I can take my revenge against you because you were there.
Yeah, you were an ex-Imperial. Turns out, no, she wasn't there. It's just sort of generic. You can't defeat the Empire stuff.
He has just capitulated completely.
Yeah, so she has a past, which she explains to us so that we know who we're talking to.
Yeah.
That's a line she delivers to Gunnar, which is very weird.
I would say so. Admiral Mobo comes down, and one by one.
Wait. I think we should briefly explain her backstory.
He's going to mention her.
All right.
He goes one by one, and like he holds a mini monologue about who everyone is and why he's happy to have captured them. What does he say about Korra?
Well, so the first mini monologue is exciting, and the second mini monologue, you're like, oh, I can't get what's happening. The third mini monologue, you're like, oh, bringing it to a close. The fourth mini monologue, you go, oh, is he really going to do all six? The fifth mini monologue, you really want to blow your brains out. And by the sixth mini monologue, you're not even paying attention. But that is the one about Korra, and he says that she is the one who, the scar giver, or bringer, or something. Scar giver.
And Sky Giver.
Yes, exactly.
Sky Giver, whatever her name is.
Yeah. Alethais or something? Sure. It's something with an is at the end, which is the feminine ending for Latin words. Yeah. But is not the one they use for the butch-looking woman. So maybe, I don't know. Is she trans? Who knows? Maybe she's going to figure it out in 5 years. Anyways, there's a rebel we haven't told you guys about, but she's here. But yeah, so he goes through, and basically Korra's backstory is that like her family was murdered by the Empire, but she was taken in by this general Belisarius, and molded to be, you know, the best stormtrooper to ever stormtrooper, like you said. And that, you know, she was complicit in the acts of the Empire. She was complicit in the warfare. She was complicit in the killing. She even had like a lover in the forces who died. So she's got like this trauma wrapped up in it and these personal stakes. And eventually she became the guard of the heir Princess Issa.
Yeah. And what's so special about this Princess Issa?
She was magical.
She had a prophecy on her.
Yeah. So, we didn't the robot waxes poetically about this a little bit earlier on in the movie, but Issa was basically like all the goodness and kindness in the universe, and she could basically heal people's wounds, physical wounds, but like also like spiritually she could heal them and make them less warmongery and evil. And so she was kind of just through existing and radiating this positive energy was sort of fixing the empire from the inside, making the bad king into a good king who thought, hey, maybe all this warmongering we should stop, and make the queen think, hey, maybe all this warmongering we should stop. And so the General Balisarius thought,
it was not gonna stop.
that's fucked up, man. I like killing people. And so he started by killing the king. And so he's the current regent. He's the guy who did this whole usurpation.
Who do we? No, we don't learn it here yet.
We don't learn it here yet. No.
But Cora
has more backstory with these people, which was sad for me. I really was hoping Cora could just be like a Finn type, or like a not a chosen one type, but she's the total chosen one. She has like all this backstory and stuff that you learn that she has with the whole empire and stuff like that.
I mean, I would say like she made her bed more than being a chosen one. Like the chosen one is much more the princess. Himself as a chosen one.
I mean, like, the point is, I wish she just wasn't so special. Yeah. I wish she was just a common person rising up against the challenge of imperialism.
Basically, Noble implies in his monologue about her that she is somehow the most wanted criminal in the galaxy, which doesn't really square up with the idea that she's a deserter.
Yeah.
Like, that would make her a criminal, but not the most interesting person in the galaxy. But anyways,
so the bad smuggler, evil Han Solo, forces Gunnar to do the paralysis move on all these people. And wouldn't you believe it? Instead of paralyzing them, he turns the thing counterclockwise, and releases Cora from her bonds. She jumps off, beats up some guards, grabs a gun. Combat ensues. Eventually, one by one, we free everybody, and we're all fighting. And the Blood Axe brother,
Ray Fisher.
Exactly, Ray Fisher, does a noble sacrifice, which doesn't feel that noble because we've known him for all but 20 minutes. But he nobly sacrifices himself to destroy the turret on the big ship and take down the big ship.
He takes down the whole big ship.
Yeah.
It's like he single-handedly saves the day.
Yeah, he is certainly the MVP of that fight. He's definitely the MVP of that fight. It's just like his sacrifice feels a little bit unearned from the perspective that we don't really care about him yet.
Yeah, we don't.
And that was one of the things about the movie. At this point in time, none of the characters had really had any opportunity to bond, or really. And we're at the end of we're 2 hours in, and they really haven't had an opportunity to bond or have much of a dynamic. Cora and Gunnar do a little bit have a rapport, and Cora and the smuggler do a little bit have a rapport. But all the other characters, honestly. And this is a sentence I kept saying throughout the movie. I don't give a fuck about you.
No.
I don't give a fuck about Titus. We just met him. I mean, he hasn't done anything endearing or interesting. He hasn't had any kind of dynamic yet. Same thing with Nemesis. Like, each of these characters we've seen in one scene so far. I think if I had to rewrite this movie, I think this movie desperately needs a team-up mission, right? We need to collect these people. Instead of collecting them over an hour and a half, we need to collect them in a 20-minute montage, all go on a job together, and then face the climax of movie one, so that they already have an established rapport, and I can spend that job showing, not telling you, all of these characters' backstory, because there's a lot of telling. I mean, this is one thing I also said to you. With Cora, we get very little characterization, in my opinion, that counts. Most of her characterization is through narrated flashbacks.
Exposition of her past.
Which I think is exposition. That's not characterization. That doesn't tell me anything organically about it. It tells me what she thinks about herself. But it doesn't really show it. It doesn't have the same weight. When she says kindness is a virtue worth killing for, that's something she just says, but we don't see her really act on that. We don't see those values, those ideals, those thoughts brought to any kind of, they're not shown to us. They're just told to us. But so we have this ending fight where the stakes are kind of like, the stakes are kind of there.
All but one of the Blood Axes who joined us die. Only one, this, I think, girl.
Yeah.
We think girl, but we're not so sure.
I mean, the thing is, like, it's obviously, like, she's kind of obviously, like, a woman, but she's very butch, and she has a male last name ending to her. Like, her name is Malleus. And so, like, it ends on us, which is Latin for male ending of the name. Yes. Is that just hinting at the fact that she's butch, or is she so butch that she's, a baby trans mask? We don't know. But everyone uses she for her. She seems comfortable with that. So I'm just going to assume that she's just super butch. Yeah. And that's it.
So, so this ship this smaller ship that they brought down crashes and burns.
Yeah, the sacrifice not only destroys the Imperial ship that's here that was the big problem in the fight, but the ship also crashes and destabilizes the entire combat and isolates Korra and Noble together. So the one-on-one, the final fight.
Yeah, I would like to point out that Korra was across the battlefield. She runs all the way across the battlefield.
She sprints into danger.
She slides under the ship that is about to crash with all how many thousands of tons of weight down. She's slides under it just to have the chance to 1v1.
Yes.
A man who by all
rights is probably going to die anyways in this explosion.
And they land on this floating platform where they're isolated, and it's 1v1.
And so
he has the bone stick.
Because he has the bone stick, his cudgel with him, and because this is a sci-fi movie set thousands of years in the future in a setting where magic is canonically real, obviously the climax of movie 1 is a fist fight on an oil rig, involving no sci-fi, no technology, no magic, no aliens, just a stick. And
I feel it's okay. The most personal fight is just so close up, and we keep we have the giant spaceship crashing, and this there's a lot of lasers.
I feel like you could do something way more interesting in this setting.
Well, we could, but we have to save it for the next one.
Right, because it turns out this is not going to be the only showdown we have. Even though Korra beats the Admiral Noble fair and square,
allegedly breaks his arm
in a choreography that'll make you think, wait, but isn't that how arms normally bend?
Yeah, she bends his elbow, and there's a crack, and he screams.
Yeah, and then she twists his arm in a way that your arm normally twists, just palm up, and he screams again. So she disables his arm, again, in a choreography that'll make you think, wait, that is how arms normally move. Yeah. But anyways, his arms are quote-unquote broken. And she stabs him and kills him and throws him off the side of the platform, and he falls way, 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 way down, and he hits rocks.
He also gets stabbed because she splits his bone stick in half and then stabs him.
Yeah. And one thing I will note is this movie is full of little inconsistencies and weird little moments where things go wrong, like with the arm, where it's that is how an arm bends, though, normally. Yeah. One of the ones that comes up consistently is characters falling insane distances and landing practically directly on their spine and being not really any worse for wear. It's a common thing. So that's what happens here. And at the end of the movie, and this really upset me and made me think, wow, this really sucks, Zack Snyder. I can't believe you did this. The Admiral is not dead. And movie 2 is just going to be us fighting him again. So same fight, same stakes, same situation, same climax.
He gets a Darth Vader kind of scene, but without
the modifications, without any upgrades. He's just a normal dude still.
Just a little more, just a little crazier.
Yeah.
But he's generally just the same person.
He's not even that crazy, to be honest, compared to how he is. He's he is 5% crazier, but he's not more than 5% crazier.
No. For a moment, we thought that they were going to basically just extract information
from him, because they established that they can just take a dead body and get information from its brain still. So we thought maybe, he's going to be dead and they're just getting the info. But no, they fully bring him back. And then we thought, okay, mech suit, Darth Vaderified, you've upgraded the perfected version. Nope, not that either.
That was one of my predictions for movie 2.
It was just him.
In hindsight, I think my predictions for movie 2 were all wrong. Yeah, they're all wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, my predictions for movie 2 here were A, the girl at the village is the princess.
Yeah, the girl at the village who inspired and healed the robot. She's secretly the princess because she seems to have magically healed the robot somehow.
And the robot is willing to fight to protect her, which is the thing that he's originally programmed to do.
Only for the royal family.
And it would make sense that in the fight you could raise the stakes by killing off 1 or 2 heroes and then have her
bring them back
with her magical healing powers.
Yes.
It looks like it's all set up to be that.
It so much feels for me like it's there that I'm convinced in an earlier draft this was true.
This happens. I mean, I know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
suffer. Like a lot of the things that are making Bright really bad in the script is because of like rewrites where they changed some things but kept a lot of these like atavic pieces of story. But yeah, my other prediction was that this guy would get some crazy enhancements.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah, Admiral Noble comes back the same as he was. Round 2, exactly what you know.
Yeah. And third is that
Nemesis adopts a kid.
Nemesis would end up adopting a kid who gets orphaned during the fight, which almost happens.
It almost happens, but then Nemesis dies instead. Spoilers for 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
So movie 2, I think mostly we can breeze through because it's a lot of the same stuff as movie 1.
I want to open just like the idea, like the way that movie 1 ends / movie 2 opens is crazy.
Yeah.
Because at this point,
Noble is dead. So the bad guys aren't coming back after 9 weeks.
And it's established that Titus and Cora, the most knowledgeable people,
about the Empire,
convinced that this ship will now return to the Mother World to bury a Noble,
to get a new admiral, and they will not be back. You'll never hear from them again. They're never coming back to Veld.
So the problem that this entire thing was built around seems to be solved.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, our 6 warriors ride
back to Veld. Yeah. They all decide, I mean, for Gunnar, obviously, this is where he's from. Cora, this is her adopted community, right? This other 5 of them?
The Blood Axes have a fight to fight?
Yeah, what are they doing here?
Yeah, she's doing it. Nemesis also was protecting a community.
Yeah.
But I guess she wants to check out this place as well. Seems really cool.
And Titus wanted revenge, so I don't know why he's retiring to a peaceful
bucolic life.
Yeah, agriculture planet. Yeah, it's really weird that the characters, that everybody is here. It makes sense for some of them to be here. Anyway. This is also something interesting. A lot of stories do a hero's journey where you take a character at the start of the movie, they believe one thing, they are one way, you take them on a hero's journey, and at the end of the movie, you bring them back to where they started, and now we get to stand in the same environment, but with a different character in front of us. The transformation becomes clearer by bringing the character home.
Frodo is the most obvious example.
For example, right? He leaves a curious, adventurous spirit, but he returns truly like a warrior, someone who's a veteran, who has experienced war and who's experienced...
That's the inspiration, right?
Yeah. So this was an interesting check-in point. Cora returns at the end of the movie, and what has she learned?
She has 5 people with her.
Yeah.
And she has learned nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So it's funny. Gunnar is a little braver than before. Most of the other characters have had no arc because we just saw their introductory scene.
He's healed from his alcoholism.
He's healed from his alcoholism. That's the thing. But he already did that in the scene that introduced him. So, that's something this movie does. You know how in a movie, you try something and it doesn't work, and you try again and you get better, and then you try again and then you succeed. In this movie, you just kind of try and it works, and then that's it. That's the arc. You just gotta do the thing.
Something that we will see very soon in a certain montage.
Yeah, but so then let's get movie 2 is all about the preparations because as we learn, everyone learns very quickly that Noble is not actually dead, that he is coming. Back. So we prepare to fight him, and then we fight him, and then that's the end of the movie, pretty much. I mean, it's all just a lot of preparation, a lot of action, and grain harvesting slow-mo scenes.
Yeah, long time harvesting grain, where...
we get to see sweaty men with their shirts off. Yeah. Zack Snyder's favorite shots.
Sometimes girls, but really mostly men.
Really mostly sweaty men with their shirts off.
Yeah. And Nemesis starts bonding with the child in the only relationship that is established through wordless storytelling.
Yeah,
incredibly, Zach, I'm so proud of you.
Exactly. So he can't tell without show. He can't show without telling.
Yeah, he just refuses.
He just refuses to for the rest of the movie. But yeah, we get some backstory moments. Yeah. We get to learn that Tarzan is from actually a really sophisticated looking, clearly inspired by Victorian England planet
where you have hippogriffs,
where hippogriffs are real, so that explains why he bonded with that specific hippogriff, but there's no other nature around, and where he was hell-bent on protecting his mother from all harm from the Empire, so she commits suicide right in front of him to get him to leave the planet to secure the royal line. Again, royal lines, very easy to secure, but secondly, he doesn't stop his mother from committing suicide.
Yeah, the scene, she clearly slowly steps on the ledge and he just watches with like, pain in his eyes, but no reaction as she jumps down.
He's just resigned. He just lets her kill herself.
Yeah, he is so bent on protecting her that he doesn't do anything when she jumps off the building.
So naturally, his fighting style unfolds throughout the combat, and we get to see what he learned on Victorian England Griffin Planet, which is dual-wielding tomahawks, shirtless, his hair flying in the wind. I don't know. His character just made no sense to me once they showed that flashback.
It's incredible that he doesn't tame a beast. He's introduced as a beast tamer, and then he never tames a beast.
They just set up that promise, and they never pay it off. And then when they do show his backstory, it implies a completely different character and fighting style than he ends up using. He's a prince. Arguably, he shouldn't even be good at fighting. Yeah. He should be good at.
If anything, he might be like a sniper. Good. He's like good at shooting or
a duelist or something. Yeah. I don't know. Definitely not a savage tomahawk dual wielding who just charges into combat screaming next to Titus and holds his own.
Speaking of Titus, what's his most shameful moment that he decides to share?
Yeah, his most shameful moment that he decides to share with the group is when he refused to follow orders to kill a bunch of civilians and then fought back against the evil empire. This all seems pretty good so far, but if you follow me, instead of letting all his men die once they get captured, he decides to trade his life for theirs. And he is unknowingly betrayed, and instead all of them get killed, and he is left alive in a strange, seemingly mercy move by the Empire. And basically, not to put too fine a point on it,
this man has spent his entire life.
They say in this movie that guilt is the underbelly of honor, and that what motivates many of these characters is guilt. And it seems very weird because the question is, what is he guilty about? What could he have done differently in that situation?
It really seemed like they were all going to die, whether he capitulated or not. He gave them his best chance, and then the Empire was a dick about it.
He performed a sequence of the most noble actions that you could perform. He did not kill civilians, he fought back against tyranny, and then when all else was lost, traded his life, he thought, for the lives of the people who he commanded. What there is to regret about this sequence, I don't really understand. What guilt he feels for this sequence. If they showed instead a moment in his career before he started having these thoughts and feelings, where he wiped out a whole planet and did imperialness all over it, right? Then it would make sense that the guilt that he's feeling. But he seems to be guilty for a moment in which he had no control.
His most honorable moment seems to be the one that fills him with guilt, while he seems to have no guilt about the fact that he was a very effective general for this imperial force for a very long time.
Yeah. So we get to learn backstory moments from characters in these kind of narrated flashbacks. Again, it's the thing where we do it for one, and then we do it for another, and we do it for a third, and then you have to sit through the fourth and the fifth and
we don't have to talk about all of them, but briefly, here's where we learn that Cora shot the princess during the coup and then was basically used as the scapegoat.
Yeah, so Cora was instrumental in the coup, and after this Caesar-esque assassination of the king and queen...
Why would you say Caesar-esque?
Because 10 people all line up in togas and stab them all at once.
Subtlety is not something this movie does.
Well, Belisarius watches and stabs too. Yes, and Cora was painted as the executioner, as the assassin.
So this is where we learn that this empire is also extremely xenophobic and racist,
because they all turn on her and they say, oh, she's the assassin, and you're like, oh, okay, she's the assassin, she's the traitor, and then they say she's a off-worlder, she's a mixture of ethnic impurities.
Off-worlder, I was okay, for an imperialist force I can still see, she's not from here, she's from one of the worlds we conquer, but then an ethnic impurity, oh my god.
So it turns out they're not just rapists, they're also super racist.
Was that the good king under also?
I really feel like the good king of the empire was not that good, even with his daughter around.
I wonder if this daughter was racist too.
And that's one thing I do want to point out. The good king trope just bores me for the Nazi empire. It's I don't believe... Sure, the assassination was wrong, but what's wrong with the empire runs much, much deeper than the simple assassination of a monarch who held for a monarchical line that held a crown for 1,000 generations.
This princess is the kind of the magical MacGuffin that they can kind of hand wave the whole thing, because it's she's magically good, and therefore it's the divine mandate it's divinely mandated that killing her specifically is bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I just briefly, like the other backstory that we learn, insane, is Nemesis.
Nemesis backstory?
Yeah.
You didn't like that she had to chop off her own arms to embrace revenge?
This woman comes from a meek peasant village where in like somewhere they keep a metal carrier.
Yep.
Wherein
the revenge
box, where inside there are two robotic forearms with two lightsabers,
basically.
Exactly, that are make you fight good. But they're not good. They call them gauntlets, but they're not gauntlets. It would make sense they would be gauntlets that you wear.
Yeah.
But no. In order to wield them, one needs to chop off
their own arms and then attach the gauntlet. And the gauntlet kind of fuses on.
Yeah, and then
hopefully you don't unevenly cut your forearms. Otherwise,
it requires incredible precision. Otherwise, it's going to be really awkward. But yeah, this is also like I want to point out it now here. Like she has robot arms that let her wield these swords, which apparently these lightsabers are designed in a way that if you not wearing some kind of protective thing that like melt your flesh.
Yes, you can't hold them, and this is a wrinkle that's introduced very late into the final combat. It ends up not mattering at all. It's just a little minor problem to solve.
Maybe it's another relic of script where at some point this was did something clever with.
Anyways, you guys know how it goes. We destroy the bad guys. We have another fight between Admiral Noble and Korra. Guess what? Korra wins again, shockingly. Gunnar dies during the fight.
Well, to be fair, Gunnar wins today.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Korra does most of the work.
Korra was very close to dying. And then
Gunnar does this classic movie thing as well, where the Admiral and a henchman are both standing with their backs to Gunnar, and Gunnar can shoot either one before revealing his position. So, of course, he shoots the henchman, so that we have to fight the Admiral. When you think, oh, well, if he just killed the Admiral first, this henchman seems pretty easy to take out by both of our forces combined. So, like, classic... Yeah. Movies be moving to make the plot work instead of creating a plot that works on its own and makes sense without forcing it. But yeah, so we defeat the bad guys and we decide we're going to go out and we're going to go find this princess. And one thing we haven't mentioned in all of this, by the way, and the princess is not anybody in this village, but she is still alive. We think.
The girl who
Titus knows she's alive, but won't tell us where she is because it's sequel bait.
Yeah. And again, by all reason, the princess should be the girl who has been foreshadowed to be the princess.
But it's not the girl. And, the robot is here too. He
is forgotten.
He is basically forgotten. It's very strange how little the robot is in the script. He's in the very beginning of the movie. He gets abused a bit by the other soldiers. He receives a moment of kindness from the girl. Then there's the sexual assault scene. He protects her by firing one shot, which... we were just told they don't do anymore, so it's like, very interesting, the robot's developing. And at the end of movie 1, we see the robot with antlers standing in a field, as if it's a big reveal. We don't know what that reveal really means. We go to movie 2, the robot's just watching all the time.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Hopkins comes in for one scene, and basically the robot briefly talks to Korra and says to her, you'll never win, right? To which she doesn't have a good answer, and the robot just runs away again. But then the robot does decide to join us during the fight, and does a little bit of acrobatics and fighting, and then at the end of the adventure decides to team up with the rest. And that's it. That's the whole robot.
The robot is incredibly underused.
So the robot is in multiple posters and is shown in all sorts of different scenes, but in the end has extremely little impact on the narrative beyond blowing some people up.
Yeah, and it's really an efficient fighter. So I don't know. It's strange. Also, it's really... I already said this to you, but I want to bring it up again here. He is like a protector of the royal line.
Yeah.
Korra was also a protector of the royal line until she betrayed and killed the princess. Yeah. And as far as they both know, she is the killer.
Yeah.
And she even draws the parallel between the two of them at some point where they're like, the Empire made us both into killers for them. And somehow it never comes to we never talk about the fact that
the confrontation, she killed her. You killed what I thought was most special in the universe.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, it genuinely feels like there's a whole bit of this movie that was either shot or and then cut or just entirely cut.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense that this confrontation never happens. Yeah. I don't know. It's almost like a person doing all these things all at once for one movie might result in them not to be being able to do them all as well as 4 separate people could do them.
Yeah, I mean, so putting things together, right? I mean, Zack Snyder worked on a lot of different parts of this movie, right? Overall, I think there is a lot about these movies that's questionable, but like I didn't think it was as bad as The Last Airbender. I still wouldn't give it a passing grade, though.
No.
It was not entertaining to watch overall. The plot was in many ways too empty and too direct. There were not enough wrinkles in the plot to like capture interest and create interesting situations. Characters were not developed enough, and their dynamics between one another were not shown well enough. They were mainly only told to us. And also, by trying to shed an even spotlight on 6 different characters, in the end, not enough light really hit any one of them. I think a prioritization would have been needed to put some characters in the front and really flesh them out and do their things, and try to also non-verbally efficiently storytell about these characters a little bit, and then have moments for other characters where we don't dive as deep into other characters' backstories, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the thing. I mean, I think that Zack Snyder, generally, like, he is first and best as a director of photography. Then he's a good director. Then, I mean, I can't judge him really well as a producer, but I think that, like, generally writing is really not his strong suit. Like his best movie, 300, is one where he's taken somebody else's very successful story and done a very good job at adapting it visually. And I think that that's what the story suffers the most. Where the story suffers really the most is like the writing. I slightly disagree that you can't focus on 6 different characters, especially with 5 hours movie. Like, they don't need to all be the deepest, but like you have 5 hours of movie. I think that the problem of this movie is that every time it wants to say something, it basically like that something takes up the entire scene and is said in the most straightforward way, with a lot more wordless storytelling, more subtle storytelling, and most efficient dialogue. I think that characterizing 6 or 7 characters would really over 5 hours is really not.
This is an important thing also to note, is that the director's cut is 3 hours for each movie, which is just fully bananas insane for this story. The story is not that complicated. No. Like, honestly, I say this kind of jokingly, but like this episode, both of these movies together are like 4 Friends episodes worth of plot development. You know what I mean? And it's like, and they're stretched over 5 hours. It's very inefficient and slow storytelling.
I mean, there are some differences, of course, but like I'm reminded of like a year ago, I rewatched the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and like it was really notable to me when I rewatched the first one how efficient the story was introducing all these different characters, which share a lot with the characters in this movie in the sense that they're all like a ragtag group of losers, essentially.
Here's a fun trick, for example. Introduce 2 of them as a duo.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend one scene on this and one scene on that. You can introduce 2 at one. But also just like show and don't tell. And don't tell us again.
James Gunn introduces 3 of them in the same scene because they're all in conflict with one another. We follow Peter. Then suddenly there's Gamora trying to take his orb, and suddenly there's Groot and Rocket trying to take the orb. And in a single action scene, we get to see the personality and the fighting style of 3 different new characters, plus Peter, of course.
And then we get to have them all hang out together. Now that they're all introduced, we don't have to spend an hour and a half introducing them one by one and not having our characters interact in between because the whole crew isn't there yet. You know, it's almost like a pizza party or a board game party that can't get started because not all the players are there yet. So by the time all the players are there, we're already so far into the movie that there's not any time left for them to bond and interact. Again, the CGI and the fisheye lens really detracts from this movie. In places, the CGI is good. I'm not saying that. But sometimes the CGI is really tacky, really bad, and really kind of takes you out of it. And the fisheye lens that just makes everything blurry, especially with motion, makes you literally motion sick. And it's like, I mean, it almost sounds like like if you said about a movie in any other context, oh yeah, watching this movie made me nauseous, you would mean like in terms of hyperbole. But no, the way this movie is shot literally made me nauseous. And that was just like, yeah. So.
Yeah. Woof.
The Rome
Do you have something
references.
nice?
The
Do you have
Rome
something-
references suck. By the
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
they're very
They're not-
unsubtle. I don't know if it's just like a European perspective or something like that, but none of the references in this movie were subtle at all in any way, and they could have just been just a little bit. You could have come up with your own thing just a little bit more, right? Like you. Do we really every single time we do an empire? Does it have to be the Roman Empire? And does like
It's what about the Roman Empire and Nazis?
can we do bad guys who aren't Nazis and rapists for once? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's more interesting, more nuanced things.
Yes,
but yeah.
Okay.
Yes, positive things to say. I do have something positive to say about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack. I like the soundtrack. It felt fitting for the movie. It conveyed a sense of scale and destiny and import that the rest of the movie holds itself to, and it was never clashing. It never clashed with the scenes that it was conveying, and so in the end, it wasn't like knock your socks off good, but it was good. It did what it was supposed to do, and I enjoyed it.
I didn't pay too much attention to the soundtrack, I must say.
Yeah.
It stood out to me in the beginning of the first movie.
Yeah.
And then it kind of stopped being a part of my experience. I mean, I guess at the very least, it did a good job at just blending in well with the rest. But yeah, I really only noticed it in the beginning that it was like, oh, this is cool music.
I think the whole choralness of
I like chorals. Choral choirs.
Yeah, it's very cool. It just sounds epic to begin with, but it also in this movie shows the conflict between two groups: A, either the Empire, or B, the community of pastoral agriculturalists on this planet.
Yeah.
I give the movie points for concept, points for idea. I think the idea is good and can be executed on well and is an interesting idea. What do you do when an imperial superpower comes to your agricultural backwater? How do you defend yourself? I think that could be an interesting story in the nature of empire and belonging and redemption and violence and guilt and honor. These are all I think actually really themes you can work with well and make a good movie out of.
Yeah. It's almost like this is based off a better story.
That's the thing. I think this movie kind of wants to have its cake and eat it too. As much as it criticizes violence, it glorifies violence. The last 5 minutes of the movie is just wow, we're just watching them just kill dudes. The last 5 minutes of the movie are just very triumphant murdering of hundreds of soldiers who are part of a hierarchical structure that they don't really have any choice in participating in when their leader is already dead.
You could take them prisoner.
And instead we fucking blow them sky high. And in the movie it's played as this is cool, this is awesome.
People are kissing over those scenes.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, where did the words that Nemesis said go? You know? I don't think this movie really convincingly conveys the idea that violence and violence and force and authority and hierarchy are not cool. I don't think the movie really manages to convey.
At the end, the arc of the robot is that now he has purpose again, because if the prince is alive, then he has a reason to fight again. And his whole thing is he learned to fight.
And the movie does have a lot of patriarchal kind of machismo to it, right? Where it's buff guys. It's big buff guys swinging axes at one another, firing guns. One of the details I want to mention on the side that really bugged me was the moment when Tarzan hits a guy with an axe, and the axe bounces off of the guy in slow motion, and the guy falls on the ground, and you can see he's not injured, and there's no wound there, which would be so easy to either practically do this effect or CGI in an injury after the fact. There's also a moment where Tarzan slits a guy's throat with the haft of an axe, not the sharpened side of an axe, the blunt he's holding the axe in the wrong direction. There's just a lot of little moments where weird stuff happens, and it's just this is wrong, this is not right. Which doesn't happen to me with other movies.
Yeah, not to go back to the same point again, but that's usually the director usually catches this if he's not overwhelmed with work.
Yeah.
The director would say, no, let's reshoot this one. You did the movement wrong.
What I also want to point out is I didn't think the acting was super bad. The acting was pretty good, and there were some characters.
The writing, clearly the problem is
exactly, and there were some characters in some arcs that did feel like they had a little meaning to me. And Korra was not insufferable or anything like that at all, which was great compared to some of the characters from The Last Airbender. And I thought Gunnar's arc was
the closest thing that this movie has to an arc.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it good, but or I'm not going to call it great, but it did the thing. It did the thing. It gets a passing grade. Like that part of the movie, I would give a passing grade.
Yeah, I also like some parts of the visuals of the movie.
Yeah,
like
that Velt was a moon. You like that? You told me.
Yeah, I like that Velt was a moon. That we got a planet, like this giant planet, to be the skyline.
Because then you can change the color of the scene very easily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can have red tones at any time of the day. You can choose to have night with planet in the back or night with night in the back. There's a lot of flexibility there. I generally like retrofuturism.
Yeah.
And so the parts that were done well, like I thought the Imperial stuff, I mean, apart from the obvious Nazi aesthetic, which I could have done without, but generally I enjoyed that. I wish that we had that Veld, the community in Veld, hadn't been just like literally like 19th early like 20th century pastoral place. If they had some kind of like scrappy walkers that did the plowing or something like that.
Yeah, like scythe style.
Yeah, scythe style, very much like that. Yeah. Do you know Leviathan?
No, I don't.
It's a trilogy of books that basically is like a Uchronia of World War One, where we have this where we have these like new technologies.
Yeah.
Where like half of the world does super genetic engineering, where all their weapons are like weirdly bred animals, and the Leviathan is a zeppelin, which is a whale that breathes in water from the clouds and splits it into hydrogen, which it fills itself with to fly, and oxygen to breathe.
Yeah.
And then like the Axis powers have like considered that to be like an abomination to God. And instead they have countered it with very advanced, essentially diesel punk mechs. So I mean, it's purely an aesthetic thing.
Yeah,
but it works.
No, I agree. Like, I think the inspirations that Rebel Moon uses are not bad, but they really could have gone a step further towards making it their own and coming up with their own world building and their own cosmology that really gave things their own edge and their own interest, because it just felt kind of like a pastiche of like, oh, this is a little bit of Warhammer 40k, this part is Nazis, this part is British colonial empire, and then this part is Rome. And done, right? Yeah. And I'm like, hey, those are great ingredients for your faction cake. Now you stir them up. And what interesting things emerge from that? What happens when you take the interesting and complex views that Romans had and how they administered their empires, and you combine them with the very different fascist nationalistic viewpoints that Nazis had, or you combine it with something else, right? And something interesting comes out of the mix.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most interesting stuff is the stuff that we like, the tanks that were like kind of like spider tanks.
Yeah, the insect mechs.
Yeah, the insect mechs, the masked priesthood. We spent a lot of time wondering about them. They looked interesting.
They seemed cool. Yeah,
they seemed cool. Yeah, but then we read about their lore. I mean, I don't know.
But I did think
the
like
planet. It looked like the planet
dude.
with
the reactor core is just a dude on the big ship.
Yeah, it's a woman.
Yeah, and it's just like this woman who has like all these power cables going into her and coming out of her, and she looks like a giant steel golem or statue.
Yeah, who's like in chain.
That seems interesting. I mean, it didn't work in the movie because it wasn't built up and it wasn't paid off and it wasn't set up at all. So it was just kind of like randomly like weird. The reactor core is a lady, but that could have been interesting. That could have been something.
I mean, I'm sure that especially, according to what I read in the wiki article, there's a lot more of that in the extended cut. But yeah, from what we saw, it just looked cool. Yeah. Then she opened her eyes once. We never talked about it again. Cora went like, and then cut. Doesn't matter. By the way, do you want to briefly mention about all the little bombs? Yeah.
It was so funny in this scene. So this is the reactor core. Cora is here. She plants a bunch of charges on the reactor core, and then she leaves.
Green ticking charges that go beep, beep.
She like activates them. They're like beeping. They have green and red elements to them. They are like, you cannot, they are, the movie is communicating to you that these are detonation devices, right?
We forget about them for like 10 minutes. Yeah. We're doing other stuff.
And then in a decisive moment of the battle, when the ship needs to be exploded, we cut to a bunch of guards in the reactor room who find a sackcloth on the ground. They pick it up and they realize that this is a sackcloth. We as the audience realize this is the sackcloth that the charges were in. And then they turn and look a foot to the right at the blinking green and red explosives attached to the core and go, what?
Oh my God.
And then they explode. And it's like,
The scene happens
it's just
like
a
this
detail, right?
for no reason.
You could execute the scene so much better. Like they run in and they see it from afar and they don't have a chance to intervene. Or somehow the charges are hidden and then this whole setup makes sense. But the way it's done makes no sense. The idea that you walk into a bank and you pick up a dollar bill off the ground and go, this should be in the vault. And you look 1 foot to the right and see the vault fully open. And it's like, oh my God. And it's like, how did you not see this when you entered the room?
Yeah.
How did you not see the explosive attached to the reactor? The blinking, beeping explosives. How did you not see them when you entered the reactor room and looked at the reactor, which is the focal point of the reactor room, the center of the room, which is uncovered and unprotected by anything?
Maybe we are just two dummies who are not smart enough to see Zack Snyder's visionary genius.
Yeah, the 5-dimension. Yeah, so that was just like one of those things where it's like, this scene is just so easy to do right, and like, why is it done so wrong?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things in this movie generally are like easy to do better, and it's
easy not to slit someone's throat with the wrong side of an axe. It's
very
really easy to do that shot again.
It really feels like Zack Snyder was like stretched too thin over this whole process.
Any other positives?
I mean, probably, but I think my main one was that I liked some of the aesthetics.
The squid monster. There's like an arthropod squid monster that's got like displacer beast pads, and it uses them. It puts them on the throat
that thing.
of a human and can communicate like that to the human.
Yeah.
So it doesn't talk itself. If you guys have seen Love, Death, Robots, it's like the Thanapod episode. It communicates by puppeting a human. And that was the most interesting and the most clever and the most unique alien I felt that we saw in the movies. And I was sad that it never came back again, that we spent a whole bunch of time on a griffin, which is much less creative and interesting. But yeah, so I thought that little squid arthropod puppeteer was cool, and props to them for making that and putting that in the movie.
Yeah, I guess the Empire is not the only group that doesn't accept non-humans.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have liked to see more, like, even Star Wars had Chewbacca on the team.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, bottom line for Rebel Moon, doesn't pass the sniff test. A lot of time spent on very little, and unfortunately, in the end, not enough spectacle or character development or clever setups and payoffs to really get a passing grade.
Yeah.
But it's out there. You can watch it if you want to.
Yes. And this is our second instance of Head Up Your Ass with Theia.
Yes.
The next movie, I already know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna melt your head.
Oh my God. I have to say the series is starting to get a little old. I'd like to watch a good movie with you for once.
Don't worry, it's a trilogy. We can move on to good movies. But I watch a lot. I tend to watch good movies. This series is my excuse to watch bad movies.
Yeah, I think it's just our dynamics are slightly different. I don't spend a lot of time watching shows or series or movies, and so when I get the opportunity to watch them, I like to watch the classics. I just finished Breaking Bad and stuff like that, and so then it's like I rarely get to watch movies, and then movie night is watching this crap, and I'm like, man, I could have been watching, I don't know, The Godfather Part 2 or something, which I haven't watched yet and is on my to-watch list. But anyways, any plugs?
Any plugs? Yeah, I watched a recent animated movie, also by Netflix. Mm-hmm. This one's a good one, done by Artman. Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean...
does the penguin come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the penguin.
Yeah, it's the one with... Yeah, it's all about the penguin, and it's kind of about AI.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it could be in a smarter way, but it's also Wallace and Gromit. But still, I mean, it's very much classic Wallace and Gromit. Mm-hmm. Nothing to complain about in the sense of like they didn't. It's not some part of heartless cash grab.
Yeah,
like this clearly still a movie made by like people who love like the genre, love the characters. I mean, also it's like claymation. Yeah. It's so much effort. You cannot not be like in love with them to not make it. So to make it. So yeah, I had a very good time. It's candidated at the Oscars for Best Animated Picture. Mm-hmm. I think it's just because they always pick whichever are the 5 movies made by the 5 big animation studios, and Artman is like a good one who makes consistently pretty good movies. So yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's Oscar worthy, especially this year. No, this year there's no way. It's The Wild Robot. But yeah, good movie.
All right, I'm gonna plug Breaking Bad. I just finished it after a long time. I started it years ago, and I think if you want a show that does dig into the nuances of evil, in quotation marks, and does figure out the psychology of its characters and
violence more than evil, I would say.
I mean, sure. I think Walter White is evil. I'm just saying that like evil is a subjective term, you know. But if you do want a show that really digs into the nuances of that and the motivations of that, and really gets down into the dirt with the base needs and unmet desires that lead someone to commit heinous crimes and never learn from it, and the show does not shy away from like the inevitable destructive consequences, nor from the fact that the biggest problem in the show is the characters. Like Walter White's biggest enemy is Walter White and his own fucking problems. And so I think it's a great show to watch. It has a whole interesting misogyny angle to it as well, where the show really wants you to think, oh, his wife is such a bitch for not letting him to cook meth and kill people. And then you think about that sentence and go, huh. Yeah. So the show's, I think it's...
You can get into some very fun internet discussions about that.
Yeah. Well, hey, I won't. How about that? I just watch the show and enjoy it. So I would recommend it. Obviously, it's a very adult show, but if you want like a very thoroughly thought through show and has deep psychological analysis of criminals and what drives people to crime and what the downsides are of crime and the upsides, I think it's a super interesting show. And unlike this movie, it is not mentally direct. Interesting stuff happens that surprises you and really catches you. Like the twists in the show are good and plausible and exactly what is often needed. So I mean, I think it's obviously nothing is 10 out of 10, but I would rate it very highly. Yeah. But with that being said, that just about does it for episode 20 of the Friendly Orbit podcast. Yeah. If you want more, you can catch us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as well as youtube.com/@friendlyorbit, where eventually one day things may become uploaded. And if you're feeling frisky, you can send us an email at friendlyorbit@gmail.com, all one word.
All right, sirs. I'll talk to you later. And to all fellow Voyagers, we will catch you out there on a rebel moon.
Ignition sequence start. 5,